Well, Manuel is the author of the report and Senior Research Associate at the Overseas Development Institute. Joins us now from London. Good to have you with us. So why are so many countries falling behind the poverty eradication goals they've committed to?
This is, as we say in the report, the key thing is the way we support these countries. As your report has shown, we can tackle poverty in countries, and people are trying to do it in South Africa and they're trying to do it in France. And we look at it globally, we need to be doing the same things, but we're not getting enough money to the countries that need it the most.
You mentioned that. That's a really good point, because in your report, which I read, it said that middle-income countries get about 10 times more aid than lower-income countries. That's a bit surprising, isn't it?
No, it is very surprising, and I think it shows just what a crisis we're currently facing and the degree of shift that we need to do in order to make it. Countries like South Africa do have the resources that they can mobilize themselves to eliminate extreme poverty. But as our report shows, there's something like 30 countries that can't even afford half the cost needed to do the very basic things we know are needed to do to eliminate poverty: getting children into school, making sure people have affordable healthcare, and most of all, what we've seen in these programs already is the need for some direct targeted support to the most vulnerable, the elderly, the children, those who are unable to work.
Do you think the number of people living in extreme poverty could actually be much higher? I mean, in this report, it defines it as living on less than $1 US dollar 90 cents a day. But you've got to take into consideration the cost of living and access to health and other services, right?
That's right, and so that measure does make some allowance for that. But it's also true that $1.90 is what is called extreme poverty, i.e. you only just have enough to feed yourself and put a roof over your head. We're talking very, very basic, just above survival levels rates of poverty. And that's the kind of poverty we don't get so much in France or in the UK, but we get half the country in some African countries can be living at that kind of very, very basic, just above survival level. And that's what we need to change. The target is to eliminate it to zero by 2030. That's what the world has agreed it should do, and the deadline it's set. What we're saying is we're amazingly off target by 400 million people. That's the extent that we're off target.
And put it all into perspective, what does that mean, being off the target that much? What will that mean for the world?
That means children and people trapped in poverty. It's going to mean children whose brain development is impaired because they're not getting the food they need. It means children not able to go to school. It means people at very severe risk of famine as soon as something goes slightly wrong with their farming or there's a problem with a drought that year. It means millions staying in that. We don't have to, however, do that, because we've seen where we have the programs that are funded, we can lift enormous numbers of people out of poverty. And Ethiopia, we discussed in our report, is a great example of what you can do when you commit to do things at scale.
Well, it's good to get your analysis on that. Thanks so much for coming and talking to us, Marcus.